It's right there.
Oh, I don't want sugar. I want
I stir it on the other side of the knife.
someone's videoing your head.
It's funny how they're going back.
Whoa.
How they're going back to this. It's like back, like way back. Always something.
Remember, I can feel you.
That's very hard to hold.
And they have a meal. They don't even have a meal. No, and they did have 63. It's kind of 64, right? These are all like, these are
This is Dad at Danelle's wedding in, I think it was August. And this you see there, Uncle Menno, that's Dad at one of his hobbies, which he was lugging. And that's Mom and Dad just married. Mom and Dad again, I think it was at their wedding.
I don't know if you sit down, maybe. Maybe not.
And you can see again, that's Mom and Dad with their children, first four children. And I think that's Annie, or who's that? Annie on Uncle Aaron's shoulder.
No, Grandpa.
Grandpa's?
Uncle Aaron?
Uncle Aaron.
Oh, that's Uncle Menno.
That's Uncle Menno? Okay.
Thank you.
Uncle Aaron took the picture.
What's this? What's the red? I always see Dad with somebody, I don't know.
Fixing something.
And Dad with us oldest five. I mean the youngest group, the oldest five. It's Dina, Elizabeth, Mary, Aaron, and Menno. And you see the cornfield in the back, that's over there. And this was our family picture. I don't know what year, but I think Mark, I think was the youngest. Linda? Linda was the youngest.
Who's mad?
He has very pretty dresses. This looks like it's Dad. Is it Grandpa's farm? Grandpa's farm? I think so. I think there was a picture after we returned from our first time living in Canada. Menno and his daughters. And Mom and Dad. And Jacob Unger, Marty Moore. Okay, Mom and Dad with Aaron and Menno.
No,
Ben.
Ben and Aaron.
Oh, that picture. There was Grandma Loewen's old trailer yet. You saw that?
Can you return it?
Go back a little bit. You see that little trailer? Wasn't that where Grandma Loewen stayed when she moved from house to house, right?
No, but then he did wasn't standing there then. Maybe later. No,
Ben stayed there.
What was?
Ben lived in there for a while.
No, I mean the little attachment to the back.
Ben lived in there for a while.
Okay, that's not that. Okay, go ahead. This was at home. I don't know what they were doing, but singing it looks like. And this is how we always ate breakfast. Dad at the head of the table and reading the Bible before we had breakfast. Uncle, all the uncles, Dad's brothers. Well, it looks like Levi and Lena with Mom and Dad. They probably know when it was taken. I did not know that. And this was a picture taken when we lived in Canada.
other picture was taken when he was eating turtle.
Okay, good.
Where was it?
This is in Canada, Manitoba, Morris, Manitoba, that this picture taken. I was 19 years old. And who knows where this picture was taken? Uncle Aaron maybe knows.
Taken on a riverboat.
A riverboat?
Yeah, a riverboat on the Red River.
Oh, right. Manitoba, Canada, right?
A friend of mine did me a huge favor. He took the picture and gave it to me later on. And somebody else, a stranger, took the picture, so then my dad could not protest about taking the picture.
I think that man, that was Mike Duncan?
Mike Duncan.
Yeah, Mike Duncan, one of his friends, he built something for.
That was John Duncan.
John Duncan?
The donor.
Is this in Mexico? Or where is this?
Looks like the hills of Mexico.
That we went to the creek, I think it was in 2001, maybe that Dad is meeting Princess Anne. Looks like somewhere in Belize. This was one of the projects that Dad did in Guatemala. He was working with Mr. Thiessen together there. There must be a picture again at that time. But that was one of his highlights. Remember, we stated that in the. This is also when he worked in Guatemala. I think building the one of those educational centers.
Whose birthday is it, Mom or Dad?
I did not know that. Mom's?
Yeah, it's
Grandma's birthday.
arm wrestling.
Is this also in Karcha, Mom? Okay, this in Karcha and the Ketchi village and mountains where the Ketchi live. Where he built that educational center.
See who's the strongest with their hands.
Oh yeah, looks like that.
Arm wrestling.
Yeah. Really having a time of their life.
Obvious in Guatemala again, looks like. Where was this, Mom? Oh, she thinks that's in the U.S. This way.
One of the jigs he built.
Where is this?
One of the jigs he built in Rosenberg.
One of the jigs he built in Rosenort.
What's a jig?
For some machine building something.
John rolled the steel for making bench.
This looks like, I don't know where this is. Mom and Dad cooking, what they love to do together.
I said, is it in Guatemala? Guatemala. Yeah.
Yeah.
Looks like another picture of Guatemala where he worked. Well, it's with Aunt Anne, so I think Uncle Aaron knows where this was. I did not know.
I'm not sure where it was.
Looks like western Manitoba, eastern Manitoba. Probably.
You see Aunt Anne there, so obviously it was something with them having a kind together. And this you would see often, the mom and dad, you come to their house, they both have a book and they read. They're both bookworms. And that's why we called the kids bookworms, and eventually Ben had said, book mode. That meant not for grandma, that meant for the grandkids.
The grandkids.
This is our wedding in Manitoba. 19, I think it was 87. Beautiful picture, that's what I know what it is.
Mountains in Mexico.
Mountains in Mexico, all right. And the brothers, all our dear uncles, at which home? Somewhere in Spanish Lookout. Oh yeah, it's our house. It looks too pretty. I didn't know the house was so pretty. Dad obviously was a bit overweight here, but he looks quite handsome. Grinning, which I love. And this looks like some picnic somewhere by the river, I think.
Might be by the farm. Not by your farm.
I don't know. Frank and Mary with their... Is Dwighty?
It looks like white.
Randy, all right.
He's chubby too.
Okay. And that obvious is Renita on Grandpa's shoulder. Oh, who's that? Pearl? Danelle. Grandma and Grandpa canoeing. I never saw this picture before. Where is this? Canada?
Also looks like at the lakes in Manitoba.
I think it's banned in the back there, it looks like, right?
That was St. Malo.
St. Malo? Okay.
Could be.
And where is this? Looks like Mom was writing a diary or a letter, which she loved to do. Is this Guatemala, Mom? Dad by our old house. Remember that old house there, that tile brick house? And he's making disco.
She said it was in Rosen Park the last time.
Oh, okay. Disco. Oh, Aaron and Dad. Is it a Frank Mary class? I did not know. Dale and Toshi's house up in the Chalk Creek area. Whose kids are those? Frank Platt's kids? Where are they? Somewhere on a ship or on a pier?
Ferry or something.
Is that Nova Scotia?
A bridge? Grandpa looks like he's lifted up on something. I don't know where he's going.
That is in Guatemala.
The building in Guatemala City?
Semilla looks like.
Well, he's very proud to be here. Mom and Dad are proud to be at Lizzie's wedding. Oklahoma City.
First wedding of a grandchild that they attended.
Oh, the first wedding they ever had. Oh, wow. Again, I have a picture of Grandpa and Lizzie. So proud of her. And this is a family gathering with all this mom and dad's siblings or family. What year was it? 2009 in Nova Scotia. They had a wonderful time with all of us nieces, without us. And these are the brothers or uncles. And here we have, who's that? Myrna with Mom and Dad. Well, that house room sure doesn't look good anymore.
Better now. The new one going up in the back.
Oh yeah, okay, time. Oh, Levi and Annie.
25th anniversary.
What is that? 25th anniversary, wow. Mom and Dad's or Levi and Annie's? Myrna giving something to Grandma.
When they were coming for our wedding.
Oh, they came for your wedding, okay.
Yes, this was also at Mercy River, the last time that our whole family was together in Nova Scotia.
Okay, Nova Scotia. Last time the whole family was together.
And we had everyone, all the couples, told their own story, and that's where Menno and Mary were telling their story.
This was a family picture. I'm not sure when, but you can see the barn looks a bit older now than it's there. He's the youngest here. Dwight? Donovan. Donovan's in the corner. He was the youngest. He's now, what, 13? So it can't be like 10, 12 years ago?
2003.
2003, all right. It must have been a Christmas gathering. And here is Grandma and Grandpa with Donovan and Dwight with the old teddy. Remember that old teddy bear? We used, you know, from him we got the teddy bear?
Is that
I still remember
That couple that used to come camp on our yard with a house trailer or some caravan thing. Yes. Aaron and Kimberly. Who's it back there? Jason, Ben, Mom and Dad. Camp Arnold. Wow, I wanted to be there but I wasn't. Grandpa having 70th birthday here on the farm. 8 years ago, right? Apparently they had disco. You can see that food there. That's what a lot of times we made. And I don't know what he said here, but apparently he was giving us one of his special speeches again. And this was at our family, the first family reunion we had, and that was a cold winter. We had to bathe with ice cold water. You remember what year that was?
2000.
What? 2000, right? Oh, it was year after I lost my husband, that year after. I think Mom was saying something and Grandpa was crying. I did not want to know, but I know one thing Grandpa said. He was waiting for Grandma would sing, and we should pray that Grandma would sing again. At my farm, looking down the river. I think that's where we went to spend one day. And Grandma and Grandpa finally needed a nap, and they just did it the old way, on a blanket under a tree. What did Grandpa tell? A story?
Grandma told a story first.
The grandma sitting there with a storybook. This is how it was when Mom would always tell stories, and I don't know what Grandpa said.
It can't be.
2001?
Look how big we are. Grandma was 80.
So how long ago would it have been? No, that Hannah, I don't think you find Daniel there.
Yes, he's right here.
That's Joseph. That's Joseph. That's Joseph there?
Ivan Joseph.
Okay, so that was not, then this was not at that anniversary. It must have been another time. The second.
6. That makes percent.
Or 3 already then. There's one at the beach. Okay, Grandpa always telling one of his very interesting stories, and this was a family picture taken there. Okay, this was Easter weekend when I and Grandma and Grandpa went down to Hopkins. We stayed at Hopkins Bay when Aaron and Dad were constructing it, and we slept one night in one of the villas that wasn't done. And we cooked in one of their workers' quarters where the workers were cooking all the food, but that weekend they weren't there. And then we went one night to Legion Dreams, and we all slept in one of that room upstairs together. We drove on to spend the weekend with Mary, the couple days with Mary and Frank in their place in PG, but Mom and Dad came back. Oh, and by the way, Alma Platts were there at that same time with Ben and Dorothy together, so we hired a catamaran together and we went out to sea. That's where Grandpa and Mr. Platt are sitting together. We thought it was so cute. Oh, there's a baby. Who's that? Menno? Okay, that's Menno Jr., Aaron's son. And this picture was taken on their 50th anniversary at their house. That was in 2000 and what? Do you remember what year it was? 2010? Oh yeah, it was. This is at Hopkins Bay where we had our anniversary. Reunion, family reunion and anniversary. Yeah, and this is also there. This is when Dad's legs are really already very bad with the circulation. He could barely walk. We took him with a wheelchair from place to place. Yeah, we have Peter still with us. It was wonderful. So, and here, Grandma's sitting on the pier there, and obviously Grandpa's grabbing her foot so he won't float out to sea. And apparently he wears a pink shoe. Where?
No, tube.
Oh, pink tube. Very, very nice. And I think, and this is the same place at that time. Yeah, the same place. The other picture at that time. I believe this was Mom. I do not know if I don't think it was at her time of her stroke. Maybe it was her accident when she broke her. No, it wasn't either. No.
The stroke was right after the
She didn't go.
reunion, right?
Dad didn't go to the hospital then. No, I think it must have been Guatemala City. That's not Healthcare Partners doors.
But what's that little logo inside Grandma's shoulder?
That says Healthcare Partners. Yes. house. Where this and when, I didn't, who knows about this? Oh, Ben and Dorothy's house, yeah. Yes, that's so nice. I believe this was one of the trips that me and my children did here for a weekend camping. Oh, that's the whole family? Which, our family or the whole Loewen family? Oh, that day we camped in the yard, oh yeah. I wonder if that grandpa's taking a snooze right now. Dad with his 3 youngest sons. And a meal on this patio here in their house, which we often did and really enjoy that nice space. A good idea the way they built the house. And this is when Mom and Dad came back in the summer, spending in Canada after Mom's stroke. I mean, that year was 2013. Saying good hello to somebody. Okay, this picture, some didn't like it that much, but this was very special to me. In April, I and Ben, I think it was Hannah, went down to Hopkins with Mom and Dad because Grandpa was always upset that we did all kind of fun stuff. So I decided that this Easter I would make them happy. So we went down to Aaron and Alan, and Aaron was lucky to have a boat there, and we didn't know when we went, but then we went out to sea, and Dad always wanted to fish with his grandsons together. So we were driving. Aaron was a bit rough with that boat, and the water was splashing over them, and they were dripping wet, and they just looked so cute at each other. I just thought it was an awesome picture of their love for each other. That's the same time on that boat. He always dreamed, he said, I want to go fishing someday with my grandsons together, but he was not feeling well, so we stayed at the pier, me and Grandma, Grandpa, and Aaron, and the rest went fishing. So we stayed there for about an hour while they went fishing. And here they're sitting on the pier waiting for the others, having a snack.
See that, you can see the sore on his neck? He has been working on that for, I don't know, for years. And he finally had something he added together. It was a few things, and it was gone in a week or so, and it never came back.
Wow.
Healed.
Back?
Peroxide and Swedish bitter, I think he added together.
This was a thing that Grandpa really loved. This is in the back of the market. Remember the old market? This was redone. And he would sometimes come to the market, and he would take our family out to eat. And he would even sometimes just drop Mom off at my house, and he would come and eat at the market. He loved fried jacks, pork, and the beans, and that was one of his most special things.
I think last time I was there with him together, he had comfort soup. And I felt like this was probably, we couldn't do it again. It was very hard.
Yes.
He could hardly, I think he was better off later than he was
This
now.
is Grandma and Grandpa reading again. Even the old folks, and they continue their habit. They're reading. And Elizabeth, where is this?
That's at Uncle Edward's,
Oh, yeah, this was our camping trip in 2013 to 2014. We decided to, I told Dad, well, we'll take them camping. He says, I think Ben needs to go too. So eventually it ended up a family reunion on the Mountain Pine Ridge. And we spent I think there were 4 or 5 nights there, I think.
I just recently asked him if he wanted to go again. He said he wanted to, so I was still hoping we would do that.
Yes, I planned to take him again, but we didn't do it, so. There's another out there.
He's chopping wood there.
Oh, he's chopping?
Yeah, he's chopping the wood and he's at the attic.
All right. You want to show you how to do it?
Yeah.
And what he did on that trip, most of the time he sat at the campfire, and I think he reboiled we usually had a pot of water there getting hot, or one time we also cooked some beans. Again by the fire, starting to make it. I think Larry was supposed to cook beans that day. Chatting by the fire.
Daddy's sitting beside him all the time.
Judy's wedding, or that was her reception, Aaron Baumel and Spanish Lookout last year. And this was a home meeting. We have a home meeting on Friday nights, so one day we decided that we would come have it at the old folks' home. So these are the ladies that usually meet at my home on Friday, or some of them do. Jane, the pink dress, the one that took care of Mom and Dad at my house for 3 months, and the little daughter beside. This was one of Saturday night. We took our young people to the old folks home to have them have a meal with Grandma and Grandpa. I think that's about 2 months ago. Grandpa meeting Judy's husband. And this was Grandpa's 78th birthday. We talked about before where we read the little notes to him how we appreciated him. And that's the cake. Dorothy made that cake for him. This looks like it's Danelle's wedding. She must feel so privileged to have that picture. And apparently he gave a speech. I was not here, so maybe someone remembers what he said. And this picture was taken at Pearl's wedding. Very beautiful picture. I dressed him up for that wedding. This is also Pearl's wedding. And this is his chair, which gave him much relief when he got up. His electric chair, he could just dump himself out, lift it up, whatever he wanted to. And that's to show you how he did it. Okay, this is a video, and we wanted him to sing this song. He used to sing this song when he would drive with the tractor and trailer. And we used to still drive tractor and trailer, and we would be driving the trailer, he would tractor, and he used to have this loud voice, and he would like have a roaring voice. This one song he loved to sing when he would drive. And he sang this at the anniversary. Let's see what he's singing. That's the song.
Well, I am Loewen, as many of you will know. So I'm the senior person in my family, except my sister-in-law Mary, I think, is a little older than my wife, but from the in-laws, there are two that are older than I am. I would like to start my brother Menno's story. I'll make it quite short. The first part I talk about winter in Canada. We had a fairly big two-story house, and us four oldest boys slept upstairs where there was no heating. And of course, as you know, in Canada it can easily be minus 30. And then we would, there was a small register where we got some heat up from the main floor where the heating was, where the heating stove was. So my brother Menno and I would put on our winter caps. They had, we know that they peltsmetse, fur up here, fur over the ears. We put those caps on, and then we crawled underneath our warm feather blanket and warmed each other up that way. And that's the way I slept with my brother Menno the first 10 years or so. We were in Mexico, in Canada. And we had to wear those caps just to keep our ears warm at nighttime. And then I will jump ahead to Menno's school days. You've heard a few things about his avid reading, and he started that from a very, very young age. By grade 3, he had read a lot of the books in the library, and you heard of some of that this afternoon already. But what's particularly interesting is that when Menno started grade 1, there was a fairly large class, and Peter C. Loewen had a daughter, Mary, who was, I think, a favorite of the teacher, Mr. Goosen. And Mary came and helped with that big class of grade oneers. So Menno and Mary missed out by 1 year not going to school together. Menno was the beginner, and Mary was the one who came and helped with the small children. And then I'll jump to the teenage years. In Mexico, I was 13, and I think the very next year at the threshing machine, Menno and I drove a bundle team together. So at age of about 14 and 15, we were working for one full man at the threshing machine with a team of horses, bringing the sheaves in and throwing them in the hopper. And almost immediately, before we even had any horses, we started up cutting firewood in the mountains. My dad was an avid camper, so we tented in the mountains, and we were there for about a week, cutting down fairly big trees. And then we had the Henry Arplette truck come and pick us up with and took all the firewood home. And to get there, Mr. Henry D. Friesen put our trailer, we had a trailer but no horses yet, bent it behind his car, took us to the mountains, and the Plettes took us back, and that's the way our camping started. And then subsequently, my camping years with my brother Menno in the mountains, I would say, were the most beautiful times of my life. We were 15 and 16 years old when we logged out a whole canyon, huge trees, and nobody seemed to worry about all this safety business at that time. Farm boys knew how to do everything, and I think they sort of almost nature to them to do things safely. Mind you, we were not always very safe, and I don't think I ever told my parents this one. I was standing behind my brother Menno, and he was cutting off I think a small support branch, which held the tree up a little too high, built. So he gave his axe a real hard swing, and it went through that branch rather easily, more easily I think than he expected. So his axe came right around, and I was standing far enough back to get just a wee little cut here. So that was one of those stories we never told our parents. And in the same canyon, one other time, we were cutting down a very large tree, quite thick, and it had one huge branch. So when that tree landed, we thought we were standing well in the clear. That branch hit the ground first and made the 2-foot log pivot, hit me on the side, and threw me about 10 feet, but I wasn't really hurt. Another sort of what you sometimes call near misses. And then, of course, Menno and Mary moved to Belize, and before they moved, we did come and see them. We hadn't really met them, newly married, with 4 children. So those first pictures you saw were taken on that trip, and we held Menno and Mary up for about at least 3 weeks, waiting for us before they could move to Belize. And then from there on, then Menno and Mary would come to Canada occasionally, and Menno would work for Friesen Benz, a huge advantage to that company, and a very small advantage to my brother Menno. I figured he was qualified to get the wages of a major engineer, because when he first came to that company, he told them, if you turn your whole shop around, if you do this and you do that and you do something else, you will be much more efficient. And they were actually afraid of him because that was going to cost them too much money. But over the years, my brother Menno came back a few more times to work for Freeze and Bins, and they implemented everything that he had first suggested, and that then was used in all three of their shops. So that was always a little bit of a thorn on my side. I thought he was getting paid about 10% of what he was worth. And of course, I'd like to talk a little bit of our intellectual exchange. We were very much in the same level when it came to thinking or reading or whatever. I just coincided with my brother Menno all my life. When he would come to Canada, one of the first places I had to take him to was to Delbert Platt, a very high lawyer, and he also was a big writer of Mennonite history. And then my brother Menno would tell him, Delbert, what you wrote there about the Old Colony people isn't quite the way it is. And then the next magazine that would come out that Delbert wrote, he was still trying to prove that he was right. And of course, Menno was wrong. Menno was right. And I think eventually he usually had to admit that. So even though, and my brother Menno has had this tendency to sort of tell people off under true and explicit terms. And he said, even though I gave Delbert Platt a hard time every time I visited him, he still always bought me dinner. And another place we always had to visit was the president of the Steinbeck Bible School. There were no real argument there, but there was just very interesting exchange about Mennonite history, and I was more or less the listener. Mennonite history wasn't really my forte, but I was still very, very interested. And in conclusion, I would just like to say I will miss the exchange of many subjects very, very much. Whether it was world politics, economics, oil wells and Spanish Lookout, or whatever. We always had some very, very interesting exchanges. I will miss my brother Menno very much. I very much appreciate that I was able to be here. It was very difficult for me. It's very difficult for me to think of my brother Menno's demise. The last 3 days were not easy for me, as it was also very hard for all of you who loved my brother very, very much. And even if he sometimes felt he wasn't supported as well as he should be, these last 3 days prove that there was a lot of support for him with the huge population that I see coming to his last 3 days of celebration. Brother Menno, I will miss you terribly. Thank you all for listening. And if you have any questions, I would not mind answering. Not I'll end this long story in short form and quit. Thank you all very much.
I always admired my older brothers. They had a great thinking. Jag ville säga, mina äldre bröder vill nämna sig intressant.
Det var nästa fjärt.
That's up it? Oh, okay. New like. Funny good. Yeah, okay. One of their, my brother's imagination was about when it was thundering. Aaron and Menno had figured out what it was, what was happening up there. My dad had a wagon with big wooden wheels, an old type wagon, and big horses to pull it. Anyways, and they knew what sound it gave if a that those wagons with big horses would run over a bridge if they were under that bridge. Now, what they figured when it was thundering, God was driving a big team of horses with a big wagon like that, and he was very angry. And he had a big hammer, and each time when the thundering struck, he banged with the hammer. So they had many, many very interesting imaginations. And another thing that I remember, when we lived in Canada before we came to Mexico, we boys always wanted to play in the ice. So when our pond got frozen, we were not allowed to go on and walk on it because we would break through and drown. Okay, then we would go and test that pond. When there was maybe about an inch and a half of ice, all of we 5 older brothers would go to the middle of the pond and shake it. See? Then we come back with the news that it works. It's picking up. And Aaron would bring a sample, cut a piece of ice in the middle of the pond and show it this thick. And I don't think we couldn't convince our parents because they didn't trust all that. But we were playing the ice as soon as we could. And I always some special memories. And one time here in Belize, my brother Menno, and Ben Loewen, his brother-in-law, that was different kind of Lowens than we. Anyhow, we were walking the street in San Ignacio, at that time we called El Cayo, and we passed a school. It was not a very big school, but it sounded like there were many, many children in there, many. And it was class time, and they were loud. I think they were all speaking and learning at the same time. Then my brother asked Ben, Ben was a teacher in Mexico at that time. They were visiting here. Ben asked Ben, would you like to teach here? Well, I don't know how I could get those children quiet. Because in our schools, everything has to be quiet. Otherwise, we cannot think, we cannot learn. But those kids had never learned that. That it has to be quiet to study. Then Ben said, well, I don't know how I could get them quiet. The only way I think would be with a baseball bat. And then in the early days here in Belize, the first couple of years, we had a lot of arguments in the church. And there was one brother who was especially angry at the preachers. And he would always say, he let it know, yeah. And I don't know he ever did it, but he had a temptation of asking that brother, when do the preachers get the devil? Before their preachers were elected or after that? He had very, very many expressions. And then if there was a church, any church that would claim to be the only church, the only Christian, only like church, then would say, well, there are many of those. And one very serious, sad case was when we had a kidnapping. 5 of our people got kidnapped and taken to Guatemala. And I was the leader in the community at that time. It was just very, very, very terrible. And they wanted $100,000 and a certain day, a certain hour. Okay, what would we do? The police force would not want us to pay this, to give them money there. So because then we would have the same case next week and on and on and on. And so what the police force did, they let the Guatemalan the government know what happened and tried to convince them that they should come and help. And they had the idea, one inspector of police had the idea that Guatemala should come with their army into the woods and flush them out, and our army would be this side and catch them. But that was not a very, that would never work because those kidnappers, they knew that woods, and I think if they would put 5,000 soldiers in there, they might never find them there. Anyways, finally it was decided that they would bring their soldiers, a very special soldier force here, and then they walk in that day when they were supposed to, according to what they were claiming, they would have to, and they had released one of the guys, John Tanner, to bring out the whole deal, what they wanted. And now he had to come back that time. And he wouldn't want to walk alone. So who would go there? John was willing to, but he was terribly afraid. Then my brother Menno said, I will go. With these soldiers together, with other soldiers, high-trained soldiers. I think there were 10 of them. And I asked Menno, aren't you afraid? How can you do this? Then he said, since my girlfriend drowned in the river, he had a very, very nice girlfriend, and we were very, very, very much in love. And she drowned in here. Well, we don't know if she drowned, but she died in the water. And the first week, I think, when we were here, that's the first group was here, the first bus with a truck group. And Menno was on his way with the freight trucks coming here. He came the next day. He said, since then, I have not been afraid, because nothing worse will ever happen to me than what happened then.
Okay, for those of you, can you hear me?
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know who we are, I am Leo and Betty's oldest son, and my wife Lena, she is Jake Cornelson's daughter. And my parents were not able to come for the funeral here, and we made a quick decision to come here from Manitoba, and we're happy that we made that decision. So I just want to say a few words of I called Mom and I asked Mom if she was going to be here, what she would say. So I just read a few sentences of what she wanted me to say. Here is what Mom wanted to say. She said they want to send greetings to the whole Loewen family. She really wanted to come, but could not because of Dad. Dad had a heart attack 4 weeks ago, so he's still recovering. She said she will really miss her brother, Menno. They were really close. She mentioned Uncle Menno always had a large heart for others. Mom wanted me to tell you all, the Loewen family, that they're grieving with you and all to look away to Jesus. The Lord will be there for all. That's from my mom. As far as me being one of the nephews, Uncle Menno was a very close uncle to me, so I have a few things I wrote down I just want to share with you. When I heard that Uncle Menno passed away, I knew right away we wanted to come and be with the Loewen family. The Loewen family is really close to us. Uncle Menno was an amazing uncle to me. He was very interested in what the nephews were doing. Always took time to visit. I had a lot of respect for Uncle Menno. As I was growing up, we spent quite a bit of time at the Loewen's house, watching my dad and Uncle Menno fix something or design something to build. That has impacted even the type of work I'm doing today. I just briefly want to share Sorry. I just briefly want to share two of the many experiences I had with Uncle Menno. These are just things that I will never forget, and this is especially for the family. Just as far as Uncle Menno being my uncle. In 1980, I helped Uncle Menno with logging. I was 17 years old, and he was in the mid 40s. My job was carrying the chainsaw from tree to tree for him to cut the trees. I realized and learned what real hard work meant. I had a hard time keeping up, but really enjoyed it. So I was carrying the weight, and he was walking from tree to tree. The second one that really impacted my life from Uncle Menno is Uncle Menno came and visited me and my brothers in my office a number of years ago in Manitoba. He was very interested in what we were manufacturing. We visited for quite some time. Before he left, he talked about the Lord's blessings and how important it is to give. I realized he did not live only for himself, but much more for others. I realized at that point how true his statement was. It has left a great impression, and the realization how important it is in life. Me and Lena just wanted to be here and grieve with the Loewen family. Uncle Menno will be greatly missed. My Aunt Mary, his wife, and many years, and the whole family. He will also be greatly missed by his nephews and nieces. May the Lord supply you all with his grace and be your strength and blessing.
Good evening, everybody. Well, there's quite a crowd here. I would have never dreamt that something like this would happen on this yard while we are staying in Uncle Menno's house. But this is pretty special because I get to meet all my Loewen relatives and get to have some pretty good visits here. Also, as my brother John just said, that Mom would have loved to be here. It was very difficult for her not to come. She is doing quite well, but as John said, it's been a really, really hard month since Dad had his heart attack. And Tante Margaret has sent something that she wanted me to read here. Okay, let me turn it this way. I just want to send a few lines to my dear brother's funeral to show my last respect and love to the whole family. It would be really good to be there too, but it's not so easy when it's so far away. Well, the biggest highlight for me regarding my brother Menno was when he got married to a widow who had children who were the same age as I was. When my mom told me that they would be moving to Belize from Mexico, that was especially exciting. Later, when I moved to Canada, they have often visited us here in Manitoba. It was always so interesting to listen to my brother. My sympathies go out to the whole Menno Loewen family, and especially to my sister-in-law, Mary. We will all miss Brother Menno very much, but I am very thankful to the Lord that he does not have to suffer anymore. May the Lord be your comfort and strength. With love from Tante Margaret.
He was babysitting me. So he was always very special to me. I know him as a kind and a gentle family friend with some rough talks. We call him Schnettibrauder. That means he comes to us for supper without arrangement, and he's leaving with the food in. He comes and goes like he feels to, and that was very close to us and very special. Whenever he shows up, we were all listening. Many times he was a very good example. Not all the time. Our family and Menno had so many things in common. He was one of us. exploring new things, seeing caves, and talking big things. I always love to listen. I was there when he lost his girlfriend drowning in the river. I was there when I see how he accepted it. It was a very hard, and I could cry today yet, but he got angry at life. I was there when he built his first bean thresher. I was there when he brought his wife and 4 children from Mexico, and he loved them. He was there when my father had died and my family ran into problems. He helped us a lot. He was very sensitive and very active. I see him walking as first there with the pickaxe up his shoulder and go and drain water on the roadside. That was his duty. He had enough imaginations to talk, to get other people thinking. And many times for the better. But we cannot let Menno go without reminding us all together what he did when it was kidnapping time. I was in the bush and he was out of the bush. Sorry, the box what they had brought was not money, that was fake. Oh, I knew, we heard that all in the bush, so there were some spies hearing things. Menno was one of its kind. Menno had lots of frustrations to overcome, but he was a humble spirit that he could get over it. The kidnappers were just laughing when they say how a big man like that could do anything to them. And he when we had to talk together, he was happy that he had trusted God so much, and it gave us courage all together. There is a way. Even though we sometimes see there is no way, there is still a way. I thank Menno today, and I want all his grandchildren. I have only prepared this for the grandchildren. I didn't have it prepared for the whole of the crowd, so just accept it as it is. Thank you, Jesus.
Even on Monday, dat we bara geld, eller cashgeld. Och vad det är soldater, det har de dödsfall zogspunnen gestaan. Dat har hij niet kunnat aanzien, dat ze de mensen weer zo aansmeren. Så hij had zijn geld ganz laag gemaakt, dat geld er neergesteld. Dat had hij gekregen. Dat vind ik wel fake.
Okay, thank you for one mystery is open now.
Isn't it true Dad had to get on a helicopter with the soldiers and he was dropped in the forest somewhere, right? Yeah. And that's where he walked in. I think the grandkids didn't know about this story. He offered himself to bring the ransom.
The British Army's helicopter took them in.
Yeah, the British Army took the chopper, went with a helicopter and dropped him with the soldiers together, right? With the soldiers together, right?
He always wanted to ride a chopper, but this wasn't the one that he had wanted to ride.
Well, I think so. I heard it. But there was John Panner was there too. Peter Panner's son was with him, right? As I understood, if I'm right, they went together. Yeah, it's an encouragement to think that we have learned a lot from that. Especially I have learned a lot, even though I was a special child. Like maybe you would all say I am special, right? Very maybe not in a good sense. Maybe almost anybody sometimes feel, I'm a lower class person, right? I don't know what you feel like that. I mean, that's what I was I have many times thought about my life, because especially lately, later years, I have especially thought about that there's always a reason when somebody does something. There's always a reason. Then I have thought about my life. I think so. When we got married, my dad said to my wife, if you do not know what he's thinking, what he's planning, then just look at the back of my shirt and see how it will shake. Then you have to learn what he is saying. Is it right? Lena, Annie, who all knows? Art, Menno, Ben.
Yeah, I think I have heard it. I've never.
Yeah, well, I think there's a great history just in my own life. But we have talked that sometimes, my wife and I have talked about it. I was 2 weeks old when my dad died, and then my mom married again when I was 5 years, so I still remember when my mom married. Maybe most of you don't know when mom and dad get married. So I'm very special, just think about it. Maybe Annie and Lena too, they would say, even though my oldest brother's gone already, so. Yeah, and then I was 5 years when mom got married. Now we have sometimes talk. What is the reason why I like to be alone? I don't know if my boss is here today. I have talked to him too. My boss from Canada where I'm working. I said I like to work alone. And then he said, I kind of agreed. I thought, wow, you noticed that too? And then somehow we have thought about it. Well, maybe that was because I was all by myself the first 5 years, and I was with it.
You were a special brother. I was first grade, he was in seventh grade. One day we walked to school, we passed John Loewen's place, and he's like, I wonder if it wasn't 7 o'clock instead 8 o'clock. I sometimes been wondering how mom let us go, but I don't know if he remembered, but I know we were hiding at school in the tall grass because you were so ashamed that we had gone so early, but anyway. Some of the school boys still passed by to do some business or something before school. And I remember when we were in Guatemala City with my parents after the earthquake. My dad was doing construction, building houses there. And then I don't know how long we were there when you came. We had been there at least for over a month already. I think you came in for the last few weeks. And then when he came there, he said he had to drive because Dad had just one eye. So he felt like it was more safe if he would drive. So I remember we were so scared when John started driving because we were so used to Dad driving in the big city. Now John would think that he could drive better, but we didn't trust him. So, I mean, I don't know if I've ever been afraid of my dad driving in the city there, but we were anyway used to it. So how about some of the grandkids?
Yeah, so like I shared before over there, Grandpa had a great heart to take care of us and always had an interest in us. So anytime we could just come before him, sit down, and we could just hear and speak. Whether it was the history about World War, he loved war. He loved World War II, and he knew everything detailed. That was his joy, just speaking what he had read, what he had an interest in. And one thing I really enjoyed too is that he knew everything about the stars, right? You can just go outside and he could just point at what this is that, and you're like, wow, how did he know all this, right? Just through his reading, he enjoyed to read. I have a clear memory, I think it's only my family remembers. We went to, I think, Hopkins with Grandpa. You want to do that one? So we went with them to the ocean, and we were ready to go out, right, into the sun. So we're putting all sunblock on our faces. So then we put sunblock on. We just gave sunblock to Grandpa on his finger. Well, Hannah, right?
So I had too much sunblock, And of course,
We were in the kitchen, by the way.
the same kitchen that Mom talked about. So, as usual, Grandpa was usually daydreaming. So, I had too much sunblock, so I said, Grandpa, do you want some? And he licked it right off my finger. He thought I had mayonnaise on my finger, but it was sunblock. That's one of my memories.
What you did with the sunblock?
He licked it off my finger. He thought it was
He ate it.
mayonnaise.
He thought it was mayonnaise, so
I
he
gave
ate
him
it.
some of my sunblock because I had too much, so he just took it and licked it off.
Grandpa, have some. You want to eat some? He licked it up and now it's mayonnaise.
Every time, Grandpa always had time for everything we had to say, and many times like if I would come from school and he would ask me what I had learned in school, and I would say a little bit about history or maybe science or something, and he would always talk about all his knowledge on the subject, and it was always very interesting to see how much he knew about almost everything. And also to come here to the farm, he'd always be reading in his chair with Grandma, was always something so special about the Loewen family, that all the grandkids or sons, we'd all sit around and just read.
What did you become?
I'll be honest, I was never a bookworm, and I'm still not a bookworm, so that's something I never got. I don't like reading, honestly. But I like pictures, so maybe.
Well, I don't have a specific story, but I know lately even more, especially here hearing so much about Grandpa, I realized how much who he was actually impacted my life, because I think many people know that I was very much a bookworm. I think my punishment, if I was not doing my work or if they wanted to punish me, then they would take my books away. That's something that Mom always had to do. That was my punishment. And I know even in I think by the time I had graduated from school, I had read almost all the books in the library there. And many times I never understood it, that I always enjoyed learning everything, and it was so hard for me to pick something. You know, when you go to college, you have to pick a specific one to study. I didn't know what to do, and I ended up doing literature even, and you read, and I so much enjoyed reading about history and literature and everything. And even now looking back in it, I realized that, you know, so many things, even about the way I have been, is I think because of Grandpa. You know, he was always he's so much into his reading, and I think it was good to even have such a role model, someone who is, you know, so much into his reading, and also even asking us all the time what we were learning. What did you learn in school? And he really was always interested. It was always interesting, even to see how much he actually knew. I know sometimes, like when we would, I think sometimes it's strange for us whenever there are others who know so much. I think because with Mom always wanted to learn more, but she did not go to school past like 7th or 8th grade, and so for us growing up, I think we almost realized, you know, we couldn't so much ask sometimes for help, but Grandpa, he knew so much, and I think it's so amazing even for us to have this role model and someone there who had such a love for learning. And I guess they also mentioned that in the obituary that he has impacted our lives in many ways.
Yes. Like we've heard a lot already, history and science. When I was in school, I was kind of disappointed we didn't really have Belizean history or our history. We would just always have the American history. And I remember one time I told Mom, Mom, why don't we have Belizean history? And I'm like, Grandpa should be our teacher. He would be a really awesome teacher because he would be able to tell us all the history that we needed to know, or he would know all of it. and science as well. I had this one time, I was learning about stars and planets, and I got really excited. I also went to Mom. I'm like, Mom, you know this? And she's like, hey, let's, call Grandpa up and see if he has, time to talk to you about this, or, kind of point it out to me, like go out like in the evening and look at the stars. So I remember we came here with our binoculars and telescope, probably. I don't know if we had a telescope, and we were looking out at the stars, and he would point out all the different planets and stuff. That actually is a different time. Another time, he knew that I really, I guess I like to do stargazing as well. This one time he called us up, and he's like, hey, there's going to be I think it was 5 planets. 5 planets are going to be in a row tonight. And if you want to see it, you have to, from this time to that time, you have to be out to be able to see these planets in a row. And he came over to our house too, and with our binoculars and telescopes again, and just had a really enjoyable time looking at the planets. And he would I guess even tell us history of how and when they had found these planets. Discovered. Sorry.
Well, I guess I have quite a few different memories with Grandpa, but one that I guess my husband reminded me of the night before he died, I guess. He's like, when I introduced Kelsey to my grandfather, I was, I guess, telling him that he was the Deeds boy and that they were missionaries here, whatever. We were talking about it a bit, and he's like, well, I always say it's better to marry a missionary than marry a mission field. So, and that just really stuck to me, I guess, that time. And yeah, I guess I also got my love for reading from my grandpa. I guess my mom's the same way. When I start a book, it's hard to climb out of it, so to speak. It's just get so caught up in that, and it really helped me in school too. So I guess I can be glad for that. And yeah, and I guess I once heard these men say at a funeral, they were both older, and they're like, even if you don't spend much time with your parents or grandparents, they're like, it's a comfort to know they're around, and that's how I feel. Even if I didn't spend much time with Grandpa lately, it's a comfort to know they're there, and I'm definitely going to miss not seeing him in town or sitting around, and when I'd go up and say hi, he was always so happy to see us, he'd give us a hug, and you could just tell he was so proud to have grandchildren, that would come give him a hug or just appreciate him, so I'm really going to miss him.
Yeah, for me it's also hard to just pick a certain memory, but definitely I remember always when grandparents would come back from a trip, they'd bring new books, and us grandkids would always be excited. Yes, we finally have new books to read. So that definitely took up a lot of our family gatherings, was reading books, looking at books. It's amazing. We would just spend our time looking and reading at books, and I also, on the slideshow, there's a picture of him holding me on his shoulders. I still remember him coming over and lifting us up so we could walk on our ceiling. That was always such a thrill, Grandpa was coming over. And yeah, I just have so many fond memories with Grandpa. And yeah, I've just been thinking, I'm like, it's going to be weird going to visit Grandma, that Grandpa won't be sitting there on his recliner. And yeah, so he was a really special man, so we'll miss you, Grandpa.
I just have 2 little experiences that I'd like to share with Grandpa. I just remember one day when they were still living in their first house, I guess, the old house. One day we came over, we were living in Belmont Pond, and at the time already, and I came over, and I was studying, maybe I was already in the university, I can't remember at what point in time, but they were just starting to construct. They just measured out the house, wherever, with pegs and whatnot, pegged out the house. And he was kind of excited, and he came out and asked me to come over. He said, let me show you something. He wanted to come outside, and he wanted to show me what he had discovered. He had discovered a squared plus b squared equals c squared, basically. And I said, oh, that's the Pythagoras theorem. I just learned that in school. And he looked at me and he was like, as if he was puzzled that somebody else had already discovered that. He thought he had discovered it. I thought that was just kind of interesting. And he took me outside and he showed me, you see how this length and that length, you square them, and then you add this side, you add these two and it equals that. He was just excited, and he just couldn't believe I had learned that in school. Anyways, another instant was when my sister Myrna and I believe we were pushing a push mower, and we were cutting the yard, and there was an old tire, a flower bed, I guess, but it was almost like part of the level of the ground already. And anyways, we came to the point of we pushed over it, and that lawnmower made a really loud noise, and it shut down. And Menno and I screamed because we got frightened, and then we burst out laughing. But within those few seconds, you heard a rumble, and it was a matter of seconds, and you saw Grandpa flying out of the house basically, and he was on the front porch looking. And of course, Menno and I stopped laughing immediately because that was a serious look he had in his face. And Mom can relate to it, that she can remember seeing Grandpa barely, if you remember the house, he could barely make the corner out of his bedroom, come around. That's how fast he was running, because he seriously thought we were injured. And then he just kind of shook his head and walked in the house. Won't say exactly what he said, but basically what he said he couldn't stand that sound, that scream that basically he thought we picked up from when we moved to the city.
They put like 200 sticks of dynamite in one mountain, and then we get to watch from a distance how that blew up. That was really cool. I remember sometimes we would always do wheelchair wheelies with Grandma's wheelchair, and Grandpa would get upset with us because we kept messing with her wheelchair.
I'd like to share a few history stories. I loved Menno from my young ages. He was almost like my second dad. And first of all, he took care of me, and afterwards I took care of him. I was there when I love to be at a Golden Age home to care for old people, and they often call me. And one Saturday evening they called me if I would come over and take care of Menno, and I'm glad he did it. Cleaned him up and dressed him. And that same night they carried him to the police hospital. And I was very glad to be there when he was there and help him. When the nurses cleaned him up, I went into the room and told them that I am capable to help. If they want me to help, I help there. And I taught them my ways, how I handle old people, and they looked very surprised how easy it was to handle old people. And finally they asked me how you do this and how you do that. And afterwards we were very good friends when I went out of that room. They were very afraid to let him go down because he might choke, because he didn't have enough oxygen. I said, old people never have to be moved quickly, always slow. I will take the oxygen, and you take whatever it needs to clean him up. I took the oxygen and let him go down slowly, and the old people always like to grab somewhere, just like small children. If they can't grab somewhere, they are afraid. So he grabbed my hand and they let him go down slowly, and it works nice. After all, he was cleaned up. And I was a younger brother to him, and he was in the outreach committee, and I was on his farm to help him with John. We worked with the cattle, and I was glad to do that instead of going to Guatemala. And I was a teacher for many years, and if I needed advice and books, I went to Menno and borrowed some books. And if I want to have history in my class, I called Menno. And as it was told already, he did not made everything right or good moves, but me and him was a little different. In the beginning of years, those boys, young boys, they were misbehaved very bad, and they tried to hurt people. One day, a boy came in Menno's yard to hurt him because he had told something to him what he didn't like. And I know Menno that when he got angry, it was very furious. And finally, that boy was hanging under the air, and out of air, he was choking because he grabbed him by his throat and held him like this. And from there on, he said, I never go again to Menno.
In my furniture shop, in the years that I built furniture, my dad came around a lot, and I've seen many of his inventions. He built a granite cutter that really worked. He helped me build a kiln dryer that worked very well. But I especially remember a steam boiler that he tried to design. He discovered that if you put mahogany boards underneath of a tarp and push in steam underneath, we would load up a trailer with mahogany boards, and then we would take it to the dairy, cover it with tarp, and push a pipe underneath, and just push steam under that pile of lumber for about 5 minutes, and red liquid the ink that's in the mahogany would flow out, and he would steam the lumber, and then it would dry really fast after that, and be a lot more stable. But he tried to build a steam boiler that on his own, and I remember all the components and the parts and everything that he put together. And then we had it right here in the yard, and we had the trailer again loaded with lumber, and we had the tarp over top of the wood, and he had the steam boiler pushing out steam. And then I would go and stick my head under the tarp, and he would ask me, does it work? And I said, nope, it's all cold yet. And we never got that steam boiler working, but I really enjoyed seeing him work and dedicated. Most of the things that he invented worked, and I'm really proud of him. And there's one more thing I want to share with you. When I was growing up, I used to like to read a lot. And I don't remember, and what I used to do is I used to sneak away when I was supposed to work and go read books, and I don't remember my dad ever spanking me for it, but I remember he spanked us for other things. Do you remember what he used to spank us? Yeah. I think most of the siblings would know. He had a gas hose, the type of gas hose that has a crisscross threads inside of it, but I think over the years he started wondering, because whenever he had it hanging over top of the wall, and whenever he wanted to discipline us, he would take that hose, and no matter how rebellious we had been and how reluctant we had been to say sorry, when he took that hose in his hands, we just started apologizing and repenting. And I think, and then I think the boys got tired of getting spanked with that hose, and they threw it in the pond. And then we made a trip to Mexico, I believe, and he brought back a long piece of hose like that. And I think he cut it in pieces, and as one disappeared, he cut another one. But one day he tried it on himself, and he realized how it stung. It bit like a snake, and he never used it again. So I really miss my dad.
Ben, I thought you would say something. I only got spanked once with it. There's so much in it.
I had to do the work of a man. The year 1949 was an eventful one for me. Aaron was bitten by a rattlesnake and his legs swelled greatly. He was taken to a doctor for an anti-venom injection and he survived. We were now taught all the snake bites cures the Mennonites and Mexicans ever knew. We would never go to the field without a well-wrapped razor blade in our pockets. One day as Aaron and I walked to hoe beans, Aaron asked, "Do you carry a razor blade?" I said, "Yes. To go to the field without one is unthinkable." Suddenly I hear a whirring behind me. I jumped and looked back. I see a big rattler strike at me twice. While I am jumping, Aaron asked me, "Did it bite you?" I said, "No." So we chopped off the snake's head with our hose and bury it so that nobody will step on those poisonous teeth. Aaron says, "Now we better make sure if you have been bitten." So he checked my foot. Uh-oh. Fang marks on the back of my right foot. I said, "Let us run home quickly." Aaron says, "No, you are not running home and pumping all that poison into your system." So out comes the razor blade. He makes 2 cuts, but the blood flow does not satisfy him. He then makes another good swipe with the razor blade. Now the blood really flows. Aaron presses the wound to make the blood flow even more rapidly. He then took my belt and used it as a tourniquet, however you say that word, would you? It stopped the blood flow. I was later told that I was lucky I still had my foot, as no one had told us a tourniquet has to be released from time to time to allow some blood circulation. Aaron ran home quickly. It was nearly 1 kilometer. He always was a fast runner. He must have set the world record that time. For me, it seemed a long time, sitting on the roadside waiting for someone to come for me. Finally, I saw my dad coming up the hill with a bottle of turpentine in one hand and a long rag streaming out behind him in the other hand. Dad poured the turpentine on the wound. A raw onion was cut in half and placed on the wound. We also had been told to cut off the snake's tail an inch above the rattler's, slice it, and lay it on the wound to draw out the poison. I do not remember if this was done. About this time, Nasado Lechuga came by on horseback and gave me a ride home behind the saddle. Our friend Lechuga was employed by the colony to brand cattle, look after sick animals, and repair the fences surrounding Las Hawaiis. I do not know how any of the various cures on my snake bite wound could have taken effect. However, my leg did not swell. People found it hard to believe that I had been bitten. I even doubted it myself, but Aaron never did. He had seen the fang marks. I am still alive, but I do have 3-inch razor. I have 3-inch razor scars on the back of my right foot as proof. I had many sores for the next 3 months. Were they the result of the poison or the cures? I do not know.
Als ein Pilger stand, ich reise nach dem Vaterland, nach dem Jerusalem das froh bin. Gott selbst als meine feste Stadt, aus Bundesblut gegründet hat. Hat zu den Glauben, mein Leben ist ein Pilgerstand.
It was the evening that that evening I didn't accept, but I didn't accept it. I mean, it was Dad had to spank my sisters. Why would he hurt them? This and that. I was kind of upset about it and everything. But there was 2 boys that came to visit them. And whatever, that was not allowed. Dad didn't accept those boys. Mary and Elizabeth were too young, I guess. At that time we figured it was too young. But then when that whole thing happened, when the robbers came into our house and I jumped out of the back window and Tina ran away. We met Frank. No, me and Tina got away. Oh, I thought it was Tina. Anyhow. But then I always remember that evening there. But that Frank pulled into our yard, the old Ford pickup, short box, single cab. I always remember that truck, right? That Frank came, and then Mary was sitting with Frank together in the pickup. And okay, but the other boys weren't allowed in our house. Frank is allowed into our yard. Mary didn't get a spanking. Okay. And Larry, so now when I think back, but then even that evening it gave me comfort that, okay, Dad spanked him for a reason, because those boys were not the right boys for them, but when the right boys came along, he allowed them into the family, and they did it. But I think he made Liz and Larry, because he cared and he loved us, that's why he did what he did. And ended up with a lot of lucky grandchildren, and we've been very fortunate to have such a dad.
Yeah, it was so serious to my dad. He said he would rather have the farm burned, the whole farm burned, than what had happened. That really touched me.
My girl just wanted to tell me about when I and Menno were in love. Actually, I got depressed in the middle of our courtship and ran away from him, fled to Canada. Just told Menno one day, I'm going to Canada. The next day I was gone, and when I was there, I was doubting. We were, just writing letters back and forth, and I was really depressed. And I remember exactly driving from Rosenor to Morris in that one of those gravel roads at that time to that highway, and Dad knew I was doubting about getting married to Menno, and he said, Tina, Menno is my good friend. You should marry him. And I didn't. I was depressed. I took my dad's word and I got married to Menno, and we lived happy all the days of our life together.